Well, welcome back to the 2014-15 school year. We're just getting ready to get fired up here, and so I wanted to again share the whole part of the welcome back information, so that a lot of these things that I send to you on this PowerPoint that you can review on your own. We won't need to go through step by step. Some of those things are kind of like the requirements of me to remind you of certain things as an employee. If we can get through some of those things in this format, then we have some better use of our time with some actual work and some activities that we can work together in our meeting on the 12th when we get started. So hopefully each of you will have the opportunity. Well, you'll have the opportunity. We'll have the time to review this and go through this and maybe formulate some questions that you might have prior to that meeting, some of which might be good to share with the whole crew, and some might just be questions just directly for me as you go through it. So please take the time to do that. It's about a 35 slide PowerPoint. There's a lot of information in there, and some of it, we will look at again, but most of it are things that you'll be able to look at now, and hopefully a lot of it will be review for you. So just again looking to highlight some of the new things. We did move to a 9-period day with our middle school, which was going to created kind of a scheduling, some really hard work for us, especially Dana. Give her a lot of credit for the time that she has spent, including fixing some of the errors that I didn't catch on my own. So we're still working on that as we speak today to try to fix some of the errors that we have found now that we've returned and now that we mailed out student schedules. Hallway and classroom lights and in the old part of the building where they replaced the HVAC, they're LED lights. You'll be amazed at the brightness of the classrooms in the hallways, and they're flush mounted, so they're not hanging down like the old lights were. It just makes a phenomenal difference. As always, HVAC, it takes a little bit of time to adjust and get to work correctly, so I'm sure we'll have some bumps there, but overall that project really went well over the summer. So the goals are the second slide. You can read through those when you get there, but real briefly, we're going to review a little bit in the slides from the routines and procedures from Marzano, and also some adherence to routines and procedures, and that'll be part of our activity on the 12th as well. Starting to share some things about relationships. I had the opportunity, Dr. K and I did listen to a guy named Dave Weber at Administrator Days, and he talked about the importance of relationships. So this is, we'll share some slides and some quotes with you in this presentation, and then that'll also be our other kind of hands-on activity that we will work through. What I'm excited about is I think some of the things that I'm going to share with you, and we'll do pieces of the activities, will also be things that some of you may enjoy using with your own students. So I'm always looking for things that we do that can also be applicable and usable for you with your students, so it's not just a one-time thing. It doesn't mean you have to, but I think it'll be available for you. Right off the bat, so we hit a quote, and I'm just going to read this one. But the most powerful predictor of student achievement is the quality of relationships among the staff, and that came from the study from the Harvard University Principals Center. They did a longitudinal study on school performance and staff relationships, and that's what they came up with. They really weren't expecting that when they started, but that was really some strong evidence. So. Anyway, that's kind of where that's how Weber kind of set the stage for us to get our attention, and then he took us through some activities that I think will be very usable for us as a group, and also possibly for you in your classrooms. Part of that is again defining who we are, and that's a little bit of what we'll do. So that would be the fifth slide about relationships and that activity. So hey, we know that we are involved in a ton of work. We review that, and I hope that we've shared enough with you how appreciative we are of your attitudes, and the survey data, the staff surveys that we had you all engage in, really again strongly showed that you have a positive attitude. You're accepting these challenges. You're carrying out these tasks, and you're getting better. And our performance is getting better. And we think we're doing the right work. And let's be honest, let's brag a little bit. We're doing pretty dang good. I mean, we're doing some things extremely well. We're accepting these challenges with a new observation tool and the whole 9 yards, and we're getting better. And the meetings that I had with each of you at the end of the year, the summative meetings, and we're just the self-analysis and the ability to recognize where you want to grow and how you want to go about doing that. And you embrace this growth model. I just think we have opportunities to just continue to get better. But one of the things that Dave Weber would say, and I think we all know this, but it's kind of a nice reminder, is if we want to continue to grow, if you go with that Harvard study, the most important thing about school performance is the relationship of the staff. Then we know that if we don't continue to get stronger as a group and intentionally build those relationships among each other and support each other and be more consistent and all those types of things, that our ceiling will come sooner than we want it to. We want that ceiling to be high, and we want to keep aiming for that high point, and that's going to take some relationship building. So that's where we will hit that. And we know, looking at data, last year the emphasis that I brought forth was about reducing number of failing students. Well, guess what? The total numbers of D's and F's were reduced from May of 13 to May of 14. One of my fears was that, we'd have a lot of people that would get out of the F range, but they would just get stuck in the D range and never move. Well, the total number of D's and F's went down as well, which means there were kids not just moving from F to D, but they were actually moving up in their performance and in your classes. So, my goal was 10%. I really focused in on class of 15 and class of 14. And class of 15 had an 18% reduced rate of F's from May of 13 to May of 14. Class of 14 had a 16% reduced rate of F's from May of 13 to May of 14. Along that line too, I'm not sure any of us fully expected our class of 2015 to, certainly we didn't know if they would do as well as the class of 14 as far as on the NISA exam, and I'm sure you will have heard this, or you will on one of the opening days. Our seniors to be, the class of 15, not only did they do extraordinarily well, maybe better than we expected, they beat the class of 2014 in all three NISA tests. They outperformed them, and in some cases by 5 to 7%, I think. So they really knocked it out of the park, and that they did that because of good teaching. And that doesn't just happen in the junior year, folks, either. I think the education they get is all the way through, and so the preparation. Think about the interruptions in preparation we had when C4L was down. All the challenges we had in those areas, and yet those kids, still stepped it up and performed at a pretty dang high level, and again, performed higher level than the class of 2014, which we all kind of have accepted as they were one of our brighter classes that we've had go through here for a long time. So, the alignment, our data showed that, sometimes it's a concern if there are, maybe only 3 kids that did not meet a standard, but yet there's 15 kids that fail in that content area. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If they're meeting the state standard, and that is what guides our curriculum, they should probably not be failing if we have good grading and assessment practices. In this case, our data showed that we did not have more failing students than we had not met on NISA test with the class of 15. So in all 3 cases, again, there weren't those outliers that just didn't make sense. All grade levels, we chart 6 through 12, finished the year at a lower number of D's and F's than when we started. And those of you that are returning staff, you remember that chart that I showed you, you might remember, maybe you don't, in May of 2013, that showed a kind of a consistent growth, and it kind of had bumps up and down, but that end point on the plot was higher than the starting point on the plot, which means as the year went on, we actually increased the number of D's and F's. And if you remember right, then it was the fewer kids, but they had more classes. So just to flip that chart upside down, and it's not an L to J looking chart like we want it to be, with that type of a change, but the fact that we ended the year at a lower rate than where we started, and we don't start those, as you all know, sometime in September. I just felt like that was a real positive, that every grade level, finished at a lower rate than where they started. So I think we made some big progress in the grading and the assessment, and I think I'm excited. That's still going to be my action plan. My personal professional development plan, are still going to be focused on those areas. So we're going to learn more. And my own personal challenge to myself, my own PD plan, is to become I'm not going to use the word expert, but become a stronger, not have a stronger knowledge base of myself. So when we do these Flip Friday things, that I'm going to, always attempt to give you things that are usable and that are research based. And it's kind of amazing how things happen. Literally, I planned this PowerPoint, had it mostly written, and then ASCD, I get a book, I think I get 6 a year, Grading Smarter, Not Harder. Is the book that came the day after I kind of finished my first draft of the PowerPoint. And then at the same time, we heard Dr. Warwick speak this summer again, and he's written a book about standards-based grading, along with Jan Haig and Tammy Heffelbauer, all people that we're kind of familiar with from school improvement and Marzano trainings over the years. So, some really neat resources that are really focused on the things that we're working on. And not just us. I mean, I think it also is reaffirming that when these books are coming out, this time, it kind of reaffirms that we're not the only ones working on this, and others are looking for these type of answers. So excited about that, excited about the direction that we're going, and excited about what our next steps will look like. So at that point, it's a little bit more about school culture, and then we jump into, there's an analogy about a frog in a pot. You can just look at that, and I'm going to, with the back to school thing with students, that you'll see a slide at the end is kind of some of my ideas, but I need you guys to help me plan that too, because you know me, I'm not the most creative dude in the world. But I do want to talk with kids a lot this year about relationships and about bullying. And I intend now, a year after I shared with you guys a little bit about our relative Dawson Rother, who took his own life in July of 2013, to be able to share that story. And some of our students have heard that story from either myself or Kendra. But as a group, I think it's an important story about relationship building and about the power of words and about the power of how you treat one another. And going back to what we said, hey, culture impacts results. And it's not just us. We have a significant role in culture in the building and in our rooms, certainly. But kids have a huge impact on the culture of a building, and positive or negative. And it's kind of like leadership. You're a leader. It's just going to be a positive direction or a negative direction. So I intend to hit some of that with students after I hit some of the things we have to cover. I also kind of want to be I'm certainly no Mike Smith, but I'm going to try to pull in some of his from last year and pull together a message to those students about how they can each have a positive impact on culture. So still looking for a song. Last year we had Bon Jovi's Because We Can. And I Can is kind of going to continue to be kind of a district focus. And if we could tie that in somehow, if anybody's got some ideas for songs, send me a text or an email, and I'll be looking it up so we can plan something for that first day for those students. So a big part of it now, again, slides 13 on, is about the routines and procedures part of it, as from the principal to the employees to the teachers. So please go through those. Again, new information. I don't think there's any new information. This stuff is the things that are pulled from your routine or from the staff handbook, which is going to be electronic now. So you won't get a hard copy. You get your old copy back. But these things I just pulled. That like it says, letter A is workday is 8 to 4. That's letter A is right from the staff handbook. As far as the things that are expected of you and leaving school grounds, student supervision, attendance and grades, food and water. That's going to be one of our activities. Is we're going to talk a little bit about how can we become more consistent with those things, because although it went down last year, we still have a lot of teacher A, or the student tells us, or that we get information that teacher A isn't assigning detentions for tardies and teacher B assigns a detention every single time. Well, that creates a situation where now the student has unclear expectations, and the teacher that's given the detentions all the time is the one that has the reputation of being a hard ass and upsetting everybody, and then the other teacher is the one everybody likes because they're friendlier. And yet what that does, it just makes everybody else's job harder, including mine and Randy's if it gets to our level, but certainly you guys, it makes your job extremely hard when there's not consistency. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be exactly the same, because you're not, and it doesn't matter what I would do. I can't make people be the same. But at the same time, if we can find some common ground of what we can agree on, I think we're going to be in better shape. So cleaning procedures, ID badges, social media, staff absences, how to get a sub, school activity absences, discipline actions. One thing I'm going to mention here, one of the surveys, but I can't recall if it was mine or Randy's, there was a comment from one staff member that said, I wish we could write detentions or referrals. And that was kind of the extent of the conversation, and it was one of those that, clearly there's been some miscommunication, because that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, the expectation is that most behaviors are managed by you in your room or in the hallway near your room type thing as and that's where log entries come in. That's where detentions come in, and that's where an office referral would come in, to the point where that, the detention or the corrective measures or the prompts, all the different things that we would try as a strategy, have not worked, and the student must be removed from the room. That's when that referral comes, and that is filled out by the teacher. So again, those are things that if you have questions about that, and that's part of what we'll get into a little bit with our activity at the meeting of how can we agree as a staff to do this with the cell phone, the cell phone sticking out of the pocket because the pocket's so dadgum small the phone won't fit. What are we all going to do? So we can at least try to address that in a more consistent manner, so we don't have to have those battles that none of us want to spend time doing. I left some of the ones from a year ago about the high expectations and how to address academic pieces and how that connects to words and relationships. So, you'll recognize them because we had them out a lot in front of you, but I think, again, it's still important information that's important for us to cover. And we'll do, and you get part of that activity with the adherence to rules and procedures using Marzano's, the reflective practice guides, and I've got some new information about coaching and expectations and samples and that kind of thing that I think are going to be really good. They're very helpful to you, whether that's something that you think is a real strength or whether it's something that you already want to develop. I don't think it'll be a waste of your time, I guess is what I'm saying. And again, things that you can take back and use similar activities possibly with some of your classes to improve on those areas. So that's finally, we want to talk a little bit about the opening day activities. Again, I would like to, I just like I did last year, at the end of the meeting, I'll ask for some volunteers. We can decide when we want to get together and come up with a little bit of a script of how we might do that. I liked the morning pep rally where basically it was my voice delivering some of these routine and procedure things, and then we ended the day a year ago with a pep rally, opening day pep rally. If you remember, that's when we did the music and had the kids all around the gym and did kind of a little activity at the end. So I think we have an opportunity to do some cool things. But certainly I want to have your assistance and your ideas. So thank you. I didn't think I would talk this long, a little over 17 minutes, but thank you for taking the time to watch this. And please go through the PowerPoint presentation so we are best prepared to utilize our time in engaged activities at our meeting on the 12th. I think it's the 12th, I'm doubting myself, but not having it be sit and get for probably what would be longer than 17 minutes. So looking forward to seeing everybody on Friday.